This video is a brief book review of The Justice of Jesus, published by Joash Thomas in fall of 2025. I have mentioned this book in my review of The Cross and the Lynching Tree, but this video is focused just on The Justice of Jesus. So this title could make the book sound really academic, a little hard to get through. It's not that at all. It's accessible language, very easy to read. Also, what I really appreciate is it's not a restatement of a lot of the ideas that you might hear in at least what I have experienced as white evangelical Christianity in the United States. So if you're used to browsing the Christianity section of a bookstore and it feels like all the books are kind of the same, I think you might find this book to be a little bit different. Obviously, depending on what you've already read, but something that you might find worth at least browsing through. I appreciate the layout of this book because the table of contents makes it really easy to skip around, go right to the part that is important to you. The book is divided into 3 parts, and each part has chapters with titles that, in my opinion, accurately describe what is in that chapter. So I find that easy when I'm trying to make references or remember where I read something. I do appreciate that kind of a layout. Also, within the chapters, there are section headers, which is helpful. I know a lot of books have section headers, but the section headers in this particular book I find to be particularly helpful. I think this book would be great not just for personal reading or perhaps as a companion to personal Bible study, but I think even in a high school class, especially a high school class that is in Christian education, homeschool, Christian school. I know not all homeschoolers are Christians, but in a class of high schoolers where talking about religious things is important, I think this book would be accessible. And of course, this could be used as a discussion book for a Bible study. Of course, it's not actually studying the Bible, so if there's another term for what churches do when you're studying things about Christianity and relating them back to your Christian faith and using scripture, but you're not actually studying the Bible, I would say faith education or religious education, but that has other terms. So I don't know. Tell me what to call that kind of a class that a church might do. This book, I think, would be useful for that. A few highlights of things that I found interesting or useful is Thomas writes this book specifically for the people who might feel a little scared when they hear the word justice because, are Christians allowed to talk about justice? I don't know. Isn't that what those liberals do? I don't know. Thomas addresses those Christians, and that's who the book is written for. But if you're someone like me, who is already on board with the idea that justice and Christianity are completely compatible, I still found the book worthwhile because it gave me things to think about. It also helped me understand the perspective of people who might be a little concerned about justice being part of Christianity. So I think this has a wide audience. With that said, Thomas, in my opinion, writes this book with deep pastoral care. I don't think he is ever cruel or unkind. He can be direct sometimes. He can say things without using euphemisms, which might be jarring for some people. He can just say what needs to be said and not leave room for their imagination so that his communication is as clear as possible. But I don't think he is ever crossing the line into being graphic or gratuitously abrupt. I think he really cares about people and does his best to write in a way that calls people into something better rather than condemning or shaming them for not already being there. I think that is a strength of this book. I also think that Thomas has thought a lot about questions that people might ask. As I was reading, I would sometimes write in the margins, okay, but what about this? Or what you've said is fine in one context, but it doesn't account for this other context. And nearly every time, a chapter or a paragraph or two later, he would answer my question or address the thing that I thought he had missed. So this is a really thoughtful book. I think it would be useful for anyone who cares about living out their Christian faith to read and consider. You might not agree with everything, you might still have questions or concerns, but as I always say, asking questions is one way to build a strong faith. So don't expect one book to answer it all for you. It's just a stepping point, another tool. It's really easy just to go find the book, see what it's about. I think the chapter titles, the table of contents, the description of the book will explain everything. So I'm not going to tell you everything you can find in other places. But if you are someone who is already on board with the idea that Christianity and justice, social justice in the here and now on this earth are compatible, then the third section gives really practical ideas on what you can do both as an individual and as a church community. The first chapter in this section is about prayer, and that seems obvious, especially me coming from a Pentecostal background. Everything's about prayer. But in my experience, often praying is confused with doing. And I want to read this quote from part 3. Okay, on page 136, he says, quote, "Prayer is often treated by many Christians as an excuse for apathy and inaction. Prayer, the way Jesus teaches, has always been intended to shape us for action." End quote. I really agree with that, and I think it's important to be said, as I explained, because of my background. So this quote sets the tone for the rest of the section. Don't just pray about things, don't just talk about doing things, actually do it. And then Thomas gives you all kinds of ways that you can, and what I really like about it is he doesn't make it seem like it's going to be easy, or you're going to start this and next month give this fantastic testimony in church about how it all came together. Maybe not even in 3 months, maybe not 6 months, maybe not even in a year. But little bit, steps in the right direction. Action is happening. Positive things are happening. The mindset of your community is changing. Justice is being worked towards. Maybe one day there will be a wonderful testimony. Maybe not. That's not the point. The point is to do the work to set people free into the life that God designed humans for, one where we are not oppressed, one where other people don't harm us because they have more power. I'm speaking for myself here. I don't want to misrepresent what Joash says, but I think our concepts are aligned at least. If you've been wondering about this book, perhaps ask your public library to order it. They may or may not, depending on what they think the readership will be. And of course, it could take them 6 months to have it ready for you. But that could be a low-cost way to read this book, although it doesn't cost that much. And if you care about supporting writers and human creators, then I would say, if you're able to, buy the book. I hope you read the book. I hope it gives you something to think about. And I hope that through the thinking and asking more questions, you are led to action that helps you to live out your faith more fully.